Hey, so I decided that I would kind of glue all those scales videos together with doing a video on the modes of the major scale, just using one note, going with C, because that's how these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, kind of things that you'll see the scales written as work, and you'll kind of have an understanding of any scale, even ones outside the major scale, why they're labeled with these numbers. Obviously, you'll also see, and we'll kind of ignore them a little bit, is the whole step, half step system. But a quick overview on that is half step is C to C sharp, and the whole step is C to D. And obviously that just means that you're going one interval for a half step, two intervals for a whole step. I hope I said that right. Half step is 1, whole step is 2. And we'll get right into it with the major. So obviously we're dealing with all natural notes, since everything's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we know that that's C major, as we're starting everything with C. Well, actually, you'll know everything is C major, C Dorian, C Phrygian, C Lydian, C Mixolydian, C minor, and C Locrian. So that's just self-explanatory in the end that we know we're starting with C. So again, C major is all the natural notes. When I would say do different positions, it would just mean you could go C to D, to E to F to G, from A to B back to C that way, or you could kind of, go this way, hitting F, then hitting B, kind of going that way, or even going to F all the way over here, hitting G and taking it all the way to C there, as I highlighted. I might have done that fast. You can slow it down just to kind of see how I was highlighting things. And real simple, obviously, we have the C major chord, and just quickly what chords are, especially, or they're also called triads, would be the C for the first, E for the third, and G for the fifth. And then again, when I was talking about shapes, I was talking about chords. You can play it that way. Start here, go to G, go to E, you can play it that way. And just highlighting the different ways you could string them together. You could just go over the neck, kind of just playing C, E, and G all over, just the different combinations. That would be another way that you could have gone over these scales and done that with, a D, an F, and an A, which would have been minor, so on and so on. But let's keep what we're doing going on, because we got to go to C Dorian, if my computer will allow me to go up, which apparently it won't, but here we go. C Dorian. So in C Dorian, you see that the third is flat and the 7 is flat. So we got to find a scale that has 2 flats in it, which is B flat major. And again, why is it the third and the 7 if you're talking about B flat major? Well, again, we're talking about looking at it through the eyes of C, where if you start at C, the third is E flat, 1, 2, 3, and the 7th leading back to C would be this B flat going back to C. So easy enough. You'll see that B flat major, G minor, related to C Dorian. And if you go back to that video, obviously I do talk about C Dorian and talk about that being a minor. So actually you can easily find out that, the minor scale, Dorian, and Phrygian should be closely related, because in the Phrygian scale, you're going to have a flat second, a flat third, a flat sixth, and a flat 7 in Phrygian. So we got to find C Phrygian. I don't know why this is being sticky on me. Not a big deal. We'll get there eventually. Did I pass it already? No, I did. Because it's A flat major. So, there we go. Again, if you start at C, the second interval would be the D flat, and the E flat would be the third, the A flat, which was the sixth, and the B flat, which was the seventh, which correlated with what we saw Phrygian was going to be if you read the number system again. And again, I started with the same note. You can just see the shape of it that I would play mostly. But again, if you even start here, it would technically be the same shape there. But you can do all kinds of stuff, and you can figure it out, because obviously C is all over the place on the neck, and that can be your starting point for any of these modes that we're talking about in C. So we got to go to Lydian next after that, and we see that here we have a sharp 4, and what scale has only a sharp in it, which is G major and E minor. We're back to the major, so obviously this is a scale that would relate to C major, because we have that same kind of C, E, and G. It's just if we start at C here, the fourth note of it is going to be that F sharp, which would be the second of the E minor, and of course it would be the seventh of G major, leading back to G major. So another major scale, and the fifth one is Mixolydian, which is actually kind of a mix of the minor and the major, only from the fact that we're going to have this flat 7 rather than the whole 7. Usually a 7 that goes a half step back to the root is a little bit more solid than the half step back to the root, or the whole step back to the root. Doesn't sound as kind of resolved with that, and that's kind of what Mixolydian has, is that more minor end to it than the actual half step. And we're talking about F major and D minor is where you would find your C Mixolydian, because we're only dealing with B flat here, and you're going to go from C, D, E, F, G, A to B as your only. So I mean, you could even say in some ways this is definitely related to the C major scale. You just don't have the natural B in there. But again, if you want to get that resolved that way, you could always add that in there. Obviously you're going to hit these notes to get the Mixolydian sound, but to add the actual C major with Mixolydian there'd be nothing wrong in doing that kind of thing in an interval, in starting to kind of break outside of just playing those scales as a whole. You could find any kind of scales you'd want to mix together, and with any note, with any root, and that could be your start to doing a modal change that way. I mean, there's so many ways to do it. We're not going to go, really, this isn't what the video is about, but it's kind of glue everything together from what you've learned before, so I just thought I'd touch on that really quick. So again, we finally got to go to after Mixolydian, we got to go to C minor. So in C minor, you're going to be dealing with a flat third, a flat 6, and a flat 7. Again, you can pause it if I went real fast there, which I kind of did. But when it comes to, you just got to think of what scale has the actual flat. I went by it because it's E flat major, which is the opposite of C minor, and you just had to think of obviously which scale had 3 flats in it. Now obviously you see in a minor scale that the B flat would definitely be in there as well, but you're also rather than dealing with all the natural notes that Mixolydian had as well. With only the one B flat, you got the A flat and you got the E flat in there now as well. And you just, again, can look all the different ways where E flat, where A flat come together, you know, to make this scale. And even just going back to the E flat major video and work with C minor that way. I mean, definitely on a piano, I like C minor. I think it's a good scale on a piano. I just like the sound of it. Locrian is the one that's challenging because, unlike all of our other scales, where the fifth is natural, and usually a fifth is a very solid note, especially in guitar, and you're talking about power chords. You know, if you ever know what a power chord is, it's basically just the root and the fifth, and a lot of rock music deals with it. So that's why you're not going to see many Locrian rock songs or any Locrian pop songs, just because it doesn't have a resolved feeling without that fifth. And, you know, you're dealing with basically 5 flats. So we got to go back to one of those scales that you know is going to have basically 7 sharps in it as well, because, well, that would be the opposite. So remember, we kind of said if it had 5 flats, because it would have been mixed in with a another scale. I just missed it. I know I went by it, because yeah, it's D flat, which, you know, same notes as C sharp major. So anyway, D flat major and B flat minor is where you'll see the C Locrian scale, because it's the 7th note of that scale. And obviously, though, if you start with the C, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th are your flats. And again, this would be the most common shape I would play. Does kind of have a minor feel to it if you add the 5th in there, but obviously flatting the 5th makes it a diminished chord. And you can kind of do a modal change with any chord. If you flat the 5th, it'll become diminished, and you can rock back and forth, you know, however you see fit to enter that diminished sound. I mean, you can do that anywhere. Again, going back to what kind of modal changes you'll use, but, you know, and just kind of getting used to that and hearing what these sound like. You know, these are the notes that you're going to play to get the Locrian C, and that's why you'll see them written so the way that they are. So I mean, when it comes to any scale, they're gonna be numbered using this system, using the 7 notes that we have in Western music, using the flats, the sharps. And I don't want to get too advanced. I don't think it's too advanced, but when it comes to writing, and, you know, things start to get complex, you're going to start to see not half, but double sharps and double flats are going to be needed, especially to kind of tie it all and, you know, make your ledger look neat in writing this kind of music. But that's another story for another day. This is going to conclude all the talking that I've done for the major modes that you'll find in this scale. Again, you know, it's just kind of working with each, maybe even, you know, using every note and kind of, you know, going that way and seeing how they relate. Typically, using the whole step, half step method is a little bit easier than using the number, but it's good to know it all, because, you'll run into them. You'll see people. I say maybe I want to have a flat third, and you got to know what that means in relation to the different scales. So I mean, you could take this idea and move it over to something like G, G major, and kind of easily, figure out why what in G major's flat it for the Dorian, and what does that mean in relation to the fact that you're not dealing with all whole notes there. You're dealing with a F sharp, so it's not exactly the same as C major, but the whole step, half step, whole step, half step is the same. And I'm sure I confused you in saying that, and I'm sorry, just because I gloss over some things. But feel free to ask me any kind of questions you want. I'll gladly, answer questions in the comments, kind of clarify some things that need to be clarified. I knew this video was going to be long just because, that's why I didn't really plan it, just because I tried to explain the best I could, and, even that probably has some holes in it, because I have a tendency to want to get deeper into some things that, because I mean, in the end, it all is related, and it just, once you learn things, the expansion kind of happens quick. The memorization would be the toughest part of it, but the concepts, I would say, are very easy. And there's a whole, when it comes to like talking about, like I said, without going too deep with why there's whole steps, well, not even that, like I should say more the double sharps and the double flats. You'd really have to be looking at a line of music that has that, and kind of get the idea. It really, when it clicked with me, it really was just kind of from, really studying that, and kind of getting it and getting why those concepts were needed. It's not really always about sound, although they do have a different sound. Sometimes it was just based off of the different, just the setup of how the Western music got a little bit more exotic, but it's still stuck between the Western rules, which we're kind of just laying the groundwork for right here. So I did kind of drag on the end a little bit longer. Maybe I could even do a video where I just play them instead of talking about it, either in the G, E category, or even sticking with C and A, meaning the G major, E minor, or the C major and A minor. And we'll kind of stop it there. Definitely stop it there. If you made it this far on my ramblings, you are a saint.